Serious cheaters of Reddit, how did your affair start and end? Story 1. I've been married for 4 years and never considered anyone but my husband. I am totally devoted and in love. A year ago, we both went out with some mutual friends. The night went on and he got tired but said I should stay since I never really go out. I was excited to be outside of my comfort zone and drank too much. I blacked out and woke up naked in a bed with an acquaintance who is infamous for partying and her spouse. When I woke up, I had 20 missed calls from my husband and the girl's spouse was fondling me. I went home and told my husband, but it was hard because I couldn't remember more than a few seconds of what had happened the night before, in a vague sense that it was all a nightmare. I felt like I didn't even know myself. I had never wanted anything like that to happen. I wasn't attracted to either of those people, and I'm not a flirtatious person. I dislike being touched, and I consider my husband to be the best thing in my life. He was not angry with me, but I felt I couldn't live with what I did. I tried to eliminate myself, and we moved from New York back to our home state of Nevada. Things seem normal now, but I still consider that night the worst of my life. Story 2. I was the mistress in a marriage. The guy was an old BF from high school. We dated off and on. When we were off, he would date this girl, Kelly, and when we broke up for the final time, he went and married her. Almost a year after we broke up, I was back in town on summer break from college and ran into him at my summer job. He gave me this sob story about how Kelly wanted a divorce and was taking his kid from him. I stupidly believed him. We exchanged numbers, started talking daily. He invited me over to his apartment, showed me his divorce paperwork, and ultimately things got intimacy for a couple weeks. One day I swung by to pick up a pair of earrings I'd forgotten the day before. His best friend from high school answered the door. I asked if Guy was around. Best friend said no, why would he? Turned out Guy was actually house sitting for best friend. It wasn't his apartment. Best friend also informed me that Guy and Kelly were in the process of buying a house. Their marriage was fine. I was livid and disgusted. I went to work the following day, and in walks Kelly. I ask her what she's doing later that night and if she's available to talk. We meet up after I get off, and I lay it all out for her. She teared up a bit, but ultimately she was pissed. She gives me their address and tells me to show up there unannounced the next day. I do, and Guy is white as a sheet trying to get me to leave. Kelly shows up, and they end up in a screaming match. So Guy ended up getting divorced and settled with a chunk of child support because Kelly informed the right people about Guy's pot plants. None of us talk anymore. When I think about it, I have to shower at least twice. Answer: good on you for telling her. I'm always torn when I find out someone's been cheating. Do they already know? Do they care? Would it ruin them both, and would either of them blame me? Not that these are the right questions to even ask oneself, but they pop into my head. In this situation, it was obvious the wife deserved to know. I'm glad she sort of ended up on top, and that you found out before things got super serious. Story 3. Was in a 5YR relationship with my girlfriend at the time. I started to talk to an old coworker from my teens that I always had a thing for, but she lived a couple states away, so I knew nothing would come of it. Well, it turns out that she still had family in my area and regularly visited. We made plans to get some dinner and catch up, for old time's sake. It ended in both of us getting tipsy, renting a hotel room, and having some fun. This happened a few times over the next several months until I get a text from her. It's a picture of a sonogram of our child. I was going to come clean to my GF because I never had a father growing up, and I didn't want to put my child through that. However, she ended up losing it a month or so into the pregnancy, and we stopped talking. It left me feeling very guilty and anxiety-stricken. 010 would not do again. Edit. To answer some questions, no, I never told her. We broke up a few months later for unrelated problems in the relationship. No, we're not still together. As far as I know, the sonogram was legit. Didn't get with the coworker. I have a healthy relationship now, and I love my GF. I'll never repeat this mistake. Story 4. Started with tutoring me in math back in high school while I had a serious girlfriend for high school. I ended up living a double life where everything I did with my math tutor, I would end up doing with my girlfriend as well at a later point. It got so bad with the math tutor that I went on vacation with her and told my girlfriend I was going to see family. After I graduated, I cut things off with both of them, and through some sort of witchcraft, after they found out about each other, I was able to stay friends with both of them. Story 5. I was in a dud of a marriage. I married too young and against my better judgment. My husband was a controlling and intimacy-repressed man who did not respect me, and I did no respect him. I found out that my husband was on dating sites and talking to women online attempting to solicit dates. He was actively seeking to cheat, and the only thing stopping him from taking it to a physical realm was the fact that none of the women were interested in him. We worked on our marriage over the years to try to resolve his online cheating, but he'd always start up again. Eventually, I got so emotionally worn out by it that I just didn't have it in me to care much anymore. I met a man at work who I was instantly attracted to on a mental and a physical level, something I'd never had with my husband. We started out with harmless conversations and became work friends. We then found excuses to text each other when not at work. We'd grab lunch together here and there, at first with groups and then with just the two of us. I couldn't wait to go to work every day and see him. I thought about him all the time. I knew I was heading toward dangerous ground, but I didn't want to stop. We started flirting and I began to sneak away from home to meet up with him for hikes, dinner, you name it. I met up with him for hours at a time on evenings and weekends, and my husband never really noticed because his attention was always occupied with his friends or his online chats with women. My friend from work and I were always careful not to make physical contact until one day in his car when he leaned over to help me with my jammed seatbelt and he kissed me. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever felt in my life. Over the next few weeks, meeting up to have dinner turned into meeting up to find a secluded spot and make out in his car. Then that eventually turned into groping, handjobs, oral intimacy. You get the idea. I could not get enough of this guy. I felt tremendously guilty the entire time because I never thought of myself as the type who would cheat. I came clean with my husband before my affair progressed any deeper. I broke off the affair and agreed to try marriage counseling. I quickly changed my mind when during the course of an argument, I didn't want to go to his church and he wanted me to. My husband slapped me and told me I wasn't allowed to have any unsupervised visits with my family or friends anymore. After I told my husband I wanted a divorce, he attempted to destroy my life. He tried to get me fired, told all the neighbors and everyone at his church what happened, posted our business on Facebook, tagging my friends and family, you name it. He also threatened to beat up the guy I had been cheating with, which honestly would have only ended up in severe embarrassment and injury for himself. It didn't take long after filing divorce papers for me to hook back up with my friend and officially start dating him. My husband harassed and threatened us both until my boyfriend called his bluff, and then he just sort of faded out. My boyfriend is now my husband, and we have been together for 10 years and going strong. I love him more than anything, and I respect him more than anyone I've ever met. I would never dream of cheating on him, and I feel confident that he'd never cheat on me. Telegram. It started because I was married to a jackass and it was a disaster, but it ended well for me. Answer, your situation sounds a bit like mine, though mine didn't involve cheating. But I met my BF while I was with a really controlling, sometimes emotionally abusive guy and fell for him while we were together. I ended things with the controlling guy, but a combination of his persistence and my teenage libido meant we ended up starting a friends with benefits thing a month or two later. Eventually, I confessed my feelings to my BF and figured we were hopefully about to start dating, so I told my ex we couldn't sleep together anymore. He also became violent, and though he continued to harass me from outside my house, etc., I never spoke to him face to face again. That was 8 years ago. Story 6. I was young, 19. I had been with a girl for a year when my parents decided I needed to pay rent, so I found a roommate and got an apartment. Day one, I go to the office to turn in my walk-through paperwork. The girl in the office made my heart skip. She made me a believer in the idea of love at first sight. She moved in across from my apartment a couple weeks later, and we started to hang out. One night we slept together. The next day I broke up with my girlfriend. Me and new girl talked and we both wanted to be together. She moved in with me a month later. That was 17 years ago. She's currently asleep upstairs next to our daughter. Story 7. I had an affair with a coworker that was significantly older than me. We were both in very unhappy relationships. He with a woman whose spending habits spent them into multiple mortgages, and me with a man that was rapidly developing a serious substances habit. It took about a year before anybody caught on. Coworkers started noticing. He eventually ended up in a round of layoffs. I got caught first and my boyfriend moved out. Not long after that, he filed for divorce from his wife and moved in with me. It was a vicious divorce that ended up lasting years. We've been married for 10 years now and are still very happy. His ex is doing great also. Story 8. A few years ago, I met this amazing guy. Let's call him Guy A. Fell very much in love with him. He was so kind and sweet. We kissed a few times and hooked up once, but he was starting to see this other girl, so it never went further than that. I was pretty heartbroken over it. Fast forward a few years, I'm a year and a half into this horrible relationship. We'll call him Shithead. Shithead is a compulsive liar, yells at me, threatens to break up every time I do something he doesn't like whenever I had a panic attack. I'm at a concert without Shithead, and I look across the dance floor, and I see Guy A dancing his heart out, laughing and just being amazing. Hadn't seen him since the time we hooked up, which was a few years ago. My heart skipped a beat. I approached him, we talked for hours, and I told him I was living with a really shoot guy and that I wanted out. When he kissed me goodbye, I just knew. I continued the relationship with my shithead for about a week while still seeing the other guy on the side before I finally worked up the courage to break up with him. I've been with Guy A ever since and haven't looked back once. Story 9. Was living with my girlfriend at uni. Towards the end of my degree, I had a field trip abroad and a good friend, and I realized we maybe would have liked to be more than that. Got home, said to my GF that I wasn't sure things were working and I needed some time. We had our finals to do and I didn't want to screw those up for her, so didn't dump her outright. Meanwhile, the other girl and I got closer and a few things happened. Eventually, after our exams were done, I broke up with my GF, adamantly denying there was someone else. Now, 12 years later, me and the other girl have been married for 5 years, and my ex is married to a woman. Story 10. I, gay guy, was seeing a guy, let's call him A, nothing crazy serious, but headed that direction. He was at a college pretty far away, but was from my area. Started talking to a guy, let's call him B, I had a class with who I was pretty attracted to. We start talking. Turns out B has been seeing A for the last year or so too, and they actually got arrested together fairly recently. B and I got along really well and started seeing each other. B stopped seeing A, but I was still talking to him. It all ended when A was in town and came over one night and saw a sext from B show up on my phone that was sitting on the table. He didn't know we knew each other, and he definitely didn't know we were hooking up. He wasn't happy, and we broke up. B and I had a short summer affair and realized neither of us wanted a relationship. We're now best friends, and there's nobody I trust more in the world. I moved across the county, and we still talk all the time and go to music festivals together. A occasionally snaps me flaccid male body part pics, so not sure what that's about. I've never really got around to asking. Story 11. My ex-husband and I weren't even sleeping in the same room when I met my affair. Ex just wasn't interested in intimacy, and it was causing so many fights because I was so unsatisfied. I met my affair on WoW, and we knew each other for about a year and had never flirted or anything like that. One day I found out that he had Settlers of Catan and mozzarella sticks and lived an hour and a half away. I hopped in the car and drove down, and we hit it off really well. He didn't know I was married at the time. I really needed to get laid. It had been about 6 months, at least. The affair never ended, or I guess it officially ended when my divorce was finalized. He and I are married now and have been together for 6 years. Story 12. I had a long-distance boyfriend in high school. We had been online friends for years, and in the middle of grade 12, finally admitted that we liked each other. He was a total sweetheart and was one of the first people who just treated me like they respected me and loved me. So I was ecstatic when he moved to my town for university. Within a month of his arrival, I was realizing we should have never become romantic partners, but was too attached to know what to do about it. He was still a total sweetheart, but he basically treated me like a friend he had intimacy with instead of a girlfriend. Plus, he was one of those guys that had a harem of female friends, most of whom had crushes on him, and he was assiduously conscientious of everyone's feelings. So he didn't want to make anyone upset or jealous. So he didn't touch me in public, despite talking at length about how he was going to marry me and our future kids. On top of that, the intimacy was awful and horribly painful. But every time I tried to gently teach him or otherwise imply that he wasn't giving me orgasms every time, he would start sobbing and beg me for forgiveness that he couldn't please me. 18-year-old me had no idea how to handle that, so I just pretended I was having orgasms while he turned my cervix to mincemeat. I was stuck in the retroactively absurd position that many women find themselves in at that age where they accept pain and mistreatment in order to avoid hurting the feelings of the person inflicting it. It also really made me sour on the thought of having intimacy with him for the rest of my life. On top of that, or of some misguided sense of feminism, he also decided that he would never objectify me at all. So every compliment would be about my personality or achievements. In theory, this sounds great. But when I spent an hour getting ready, had zippered myself into a bombshell dress, and actually put makeup on, getting a, "Oh, you have such a beautiful mind" response fudged with my self-esteem a lot. I was convinced he thought I was ugly, but was too kind to say anything. Cue a classmate who on the first day of class stopped when he saw me and gave me a very obvious appreciative once-over. Dude sat next to me for the rest of term, blatantly flirting with me and telling me I was pretty. Me, still primly trying to keep things going with boyfriend because I loved him, started feeling horribly torn. It was extremely hard to ignore someone who was so blatantly attracted to me, but I managed it for about 5 months. Then boyfriend went back to his hometown for winter break. He spent the entire month going to parties and hanging out with his friends. We talked every day, but it was mostly him telling me about how much fun he was having. All of my friends, both old and new, had left the city for the holidays, whether it was for vacations or back home, and I was incredibly lonely and depressed. Sometime near the end of break, break, flirty classmate discovered that I had been alone all winter break and started inviting me to hang out with him every day. I was ecstatic with the attention, but still kept it to just friends hangouts and basically avoided touching him. Boyfriend, by this point, had started looking at classmate with suspicion. Boyfriend came back from winter break, jealous and suspicious. He stayed over one night and questioned me at length about it. I told him, truthfully, that I hadn't done anything with classmate, and while I liked him, boyfriend was boyfriend, and he was all I needed. I got ready to go to class and left boyfriend in my room to let himself out when he was ready. As I was leaving, I had a sudden tickle of intuition. Turning around, I went to the kitchen, made boyfriend some breakfast, and brought it back up to my room on the pretext of surprising him. Opened the door. Boyfriend is going through my diary. Cue screaming fight. He wanted to make sure I hadn't done anything. I was enraged that he had invaded my privacy. At the point, I took my writing really seriously and my diary was extremely important to me. I was also enraged because I had been so careful to be a proper girlfriend and not cheat or do anything inappropriate with classmate, even though the temptation was strong. I couldn't avoid classmate entirely, and we were in the same class and were grouped together for a big term project prior to winter break. I stormed out and went to class. Classmate was immediately aware that something was up and cornered me to figure it out. Angry with boyfriend, I confessed everything. Classmate asked if I liked him. I nodded. Classmate kissed me, and I kissed him back. It went downhill from there. Classmate really wasn't jerk, but he was average in bed, which unfortunately made him leagues better than boyfriend, who was terrible. He also fed me all the attention that I had been craving from boyfriend and had not gotten. I couldn't figure out how to end it with boyfriend because I still loved him and I was still an insecure, scared 18-year-old who had no communication skills. Boyfriend ended up finding out within a month or so because he went into my email account and read all my chat logs. When I went to apologize to him, he slapped me across the face and told me that losing my mother as a kid had fudged me up too much to deserve anyone's love. So yeah, not sure if I didn't dodge a bullet there. Not happy with my own behavior, but I'm not sure how else things could have played out given how insecure and terrible at communicating I was. Haven't cheated since, and it's been 10 years. Answer: correct decision to kiss the classmate. It helped you dodge a psycho. My ex accused me of cheating 4 times over a 2-month period, all of which stand out in my mind and really hurt at the time. The first time was when I was waiting at a bar and said like 2 comments to a guy at a bar. BF then snuck up behind me and accused me of chatting this guy up. I fudge yelled at him. I am such trash for doing that in public, but I couldn't help myself. I've never cheated, never have, and never would. If I'm with you, I'm with you. If I want to be with someone else, I won't waste your time. After the 4th very upsetting time, I confided in someone who told me I could do much better, and I asked Biva for a break from him for like a week. A few days later, I ended up kissing the person I confided in. Had to break up. I don't see it as having cheated, but I couldn't go back to normal without telling him. And if he didn't trust me before, how was he ever going to if I told him the truth? I now have casual hookups with the confidee. All I look back on with fondness with my relationship is when we had ice cream at Pizza Hut and his cock, unrelated. Story 13. I began a relationship with a guy from work who was separated from his wife. Then she found out and contacted me. Turns out he had done this before, many times, and they were not separated or considering divorce as they are Muslim. They weren't close emotionally or sleeping in the same bed, but they were very much officially together. I felt fudge awful. I'd fallen so hard for this guy. His wife was absolutely amazing, a truly wonderful person. I'm a piece of shit for what I did to her. They're still together as far as I know. Story 14. I was 40, had been married 10 years, and had a couple of kids. Our marriage had turned into something that made me really unhappy. We barely had intimacy, and our connection seemed completely gone. We fought a lot, and it was always me who needed to apologize and compromise. I met a woman 15 years younger at the office. We started flirting, and it turned into an intense emotional affair that lasted about a month. I fell deeply in love with her and decided I should really divorce my wife, since I was so unhappy. I told my wife about the other woman and that I wanted to divorce. My wife begged me to try and work it out, go into couples counseling, and started having intimacy with me every day. I stayed and agreed to take 3 months to see if we could work it out. It was incredibly hard, but we eventually did feel like we overcame it and we're still together. Story 15. Well, I was young and stupid. I was in a relationship where neither of us were happy, but we were too attached or afraid to end it. He was working insane hours, so we never saw each other, and I just didn't care for him anymore. But I didn't realize it until I met a friend of my roommates. We'll call him Jim. He swept me off my feet. Jim made me feel special in a way that I hadn't felt in years. He put it in my head that my ex-significant other didn't love me or care about me, and that I deserved better, etc. Eventually, this all led to this weird pseudo-relationship. We talked constantly, but never hooked up. Until one night, after a bad fight with my boyfriend, I fled to Jim's house for comfort. That night, our physical relationship begun. Jim made me feel wanted, and he made me smile and laugh, and I enjoyed spending time with him. It was a fun little secret at first, but I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I couldn't handle the guilt anymore. I finally ended things with my boyfriend, and that is when Jim completely ghosted me. It hurt worse than the breakup. My support system and motivation to leave my boyfriend of 3 years was gone because apparently it got too real. I was naive and young and vulnerable. Jim came into my life when I was heading towards the end of my first serious relationship, and I was very lonely. I disliked myself for what I did until I learned that my significant other had been cheating on me for the entirety of our relationship and was waiting for me to leave so he could be with her. So I guess it all worked out. Story 16. Throwaway for obvious reasons. I was the other guy in a 2-year-long affair. She was married and still is. No happy ending for me, at least. Former work associates, we'd hung out a few times and just watched TV movies, smoked, drank, but nothing happened for a long time. I had an emotional and physical attraction to her, and the feeling was mutual. But we never crossed a line. One time at a party, she got too tipsy, and since I was her ride, we both stayed there in a spare bed together. Honestly, I wanted the intimacy of being close to somebody, and I wanted to make sure she didn't get sick in her sleep. I didn't do anything, and neither did she. Nothing happened that night. We hung out a week or so later, and she said she had liked my beard rubbing against her, and then asked me to do it again. This progressed over days to more intimately, cuddling, grinding, groping, and finally I kissed her. It was awesome. Making out progressed to oral. Then she really wanted to have intimacy one night. I declined at first, really, but we had intimacy. Then again, and again. She explained sometime after this that at the beginning she was feeling distant from her husband. He was pushing her to have kids and, according to her, being a male body part. I wasn't that guy. It ended fairly recently because she was trying to distance herself from me and kept saying that to the point I just said fudge it and gave up. It ended up in a minor argument and she asked if I wanted to break up. I said I wasn't certain. So she dumped me instead, told Dudar. It started out with a little bit of intimacy and ended when I got so frustrated at her, and vice versa, I guess. Story 17. Honestly, it stemmed from being insecure. I don't want to believe it, but they say once a cheater, always a cheater. And I've cheated multiple times. It's wrong, but I really loved everyone I cheated on, and it had nothing I do with that person. It's entirely been because of my own issues. Doesn't make it okay, but it's reality. I'm just being honest. I know it's wrong to cheat, and there's no excuse. I truly am sorry to the people I've hurt. Answer. This is exactly what's going on between me and my ex-boyfriend now. He cheated on his ex-GF 3 years ago. Now he cheated on me after we'd been together for 2 years. He said it's because of his insecurities and stuff. He claims he loves me more than anything and that he dislikes himself for hurting me. But I don't know what to believe. I feel broken. But at least he's going to therapy now. I don't think I will ever be able to believe him again, but I'm happy that he's serious about fixing his own insecurities before starting a new relationship. Story 18. I was friends with this guy, we'll call him Trevor, for a long time, 4 or 5 years. He's 3 years younger than me when we first met at work. I was 19 and he was 16. I always thought he was cute, but the age difference at that time was too much. When I was 23 and he was getting ready to turn 21, it didn't seem so bad. We'd been hanging out a lot and we're both single. One night I told him I was confused about our friendship and had feelings for him. I thought he wouldn't be interested, but he was. We kissed right before he left and decided to see where things would take us. The next night he came over and was acting weird. He eventually said he was too scared to lose me to risk our friendship. I told him to GTFO. I was pissed, hurt, and embarrassed. I couldn't understand why he didn't just tell me no the first time. We stopped hanging out for a few weeks, then he begged for my forgiveness. I had truly missed him too, and thought I would be okay with being just friends with him. A few weeks later, I started hanging out with a new group of guys. One of them, Matt, eventually made a move on me, and we started sleeping together. He said he didn't want a relationship. I told him that was fine. Matt and Trevor had already met through me, and our whole friend group hung out a lot. I told Trevor about Matt. He seemed upset, and another friend mentioned that Trevor had asked if Matt and I were serious. After about a month of just hooking up, Matt told me he was in love with me and wanted to be with me. I didn't say it back, but I agreed to be his girlfriend. Matt was not the world's best BF. 2 days after being official, I saw Tinder notice on his phone. We talked about it, and he said that was from when we weren't official. Okay, fair enough. He deleted it. We went out with friends to a club. A girl showed up who I had used to work with, who was very flirty. She kind of attached to our group. I warned Matt about her and asked him to give her a wide berth. I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, she had her arm around him, and he was exchanging Snapchat names with her. WTF? My friend Harry, who was with us, also told me that Matt had danced with another girl when I was gone as well. Matt later denied this and told me to call Harry and ask. Harry again confirmed that Matt had danced with another girl. One night he was getting snaps from someone who he identified as an ex. I told him I was uncomfortable with that, and he made the choice to delete her, except he kept getting snaps from her. I saw there was a saved convo from a few days before we were exclusive telling her he missed her jerk. I attempted to break up with him then, but he begged me for forgiveness, so I forgave him. He also would constantly stare at other girls to the point where I'd become very insecure. Not just a glance, I'm talking he wouldn't even make eye contact with me while we were having a conversation because he was being so creepy. One night it was so bad I again tried to break up with him, but he said he would change. Trevor, Harry, and I went out together about 5 months into my relationship with Matt. Trevor confessed that he was in love with me. He couldn't stand how Matt was treating me. He said when he changed his mind before he'd been struggling with an Adderall problem, and he was scared he was going to mess everything up. Honestly, I'd never really gotten over my feelings for him. We hooked up that night, and it just felt right. I broke up with Matt the next day. It was hard. I felt terrible about cheating on him. He fought the breakup for weeks after. He did everything he could to get me back, including saying he was planning on proposing. Trevor and I are still together, almost 2 years later, and we're doing great. Initially, we had a lot of problems stemming from how we got together. I was scared he'd change his mind. He was scared I would do to him what I did to Matt. If I could go back and never date Matt, I would. Or at least have broken up with him one of the many times I tried to before we actually ended. And I still feel shoot about it because despite how terrible of a BF he was, no one deserves to be cheated on. So if you're in a relationship that's unhappy to the point that you cheat or you have feelings for someone else, just get out. You are not trapped, even if it feels like it. Story 19. Story 21. I was in an abusive relationship where I got beat up on, locked in the bathroom, held down, etc. I had no life. It was just work, baby, beat down, rinse, repeat. I was put down so badly, I didn't even consider myself a human being anymore. But I thought I had to make it through, stick with it, because that's what my mom did for 30 years. We all lived in such an abusive environment. So to me, this was normal. Even though I had hysterical breakdowns, was tragic end every day, and was held against my will, it was normal. Then one day I snapped. I went online to find friends. All I wanted was a friend to talk to, and I knew I couldn't have a real-life person friend. It had to be internet. But I also wanted the temptation of knowing that if I made a friend, they could be close by. Me being naive, I went on an adult friend finder website. Haha, I had found someone genuine and caring and healthy. And they helped make me feel like maybe I could be a person. And romantic feelings quickly developed. I gathered up enough courage to leave. It wasn't easy, very messy. There's still a whole bunch of kinks that need to be worked out. I live alone with my daughter, but the ex gets my baby, now 3. She was 1 when this happened, while I work during the day and gets 2 overnights every week. Everyone always tells me I should file for child support, but I just can't. The thought of it makes me want to throw up from nervousness. I don't want to be in the same room as that guy, asking for money he won't even give out for our kid. He'd rather spend it on substances, but I just can't. He scares me too much. But otherwise, I still have a healthy, happy relationship with the person I had met on the internet. It's a relationship like none other I've had. We're so open and honest with each other. There's still speed bumps, but I would never expect perfection. He's an absolute dream working with my kid. I'm glad I cheated so I could get out of hell and start feeling like a human again. Story 22. I cheated 3 different occasions while I was with my SO. When I mean 3 different occasions, I mean I had intimacy with another girl 3 different times. It started with my not being satisfied with my SO at the time. I started drinking to cope with our relationship. Drinking made me lose a lot of my ability to care or think rationally. I hit up a girl I used to know with intentions of sleeping with her. We talked back and forth, meet up 3 different times, and that was that. My SO at the time never found out, and I never told her. Mine was not very scandalous, but I can tell you it's the only thing in my life I regret doing. It's a weak and cowardly move to make. Story 23. Mom was with a girl about 4 months, but she never showed much interest in me physically. So I started sleeping with a rather promiscuous coworker who had been with most of the male staff in the back of my car after work. 2 months later, girlfriend broke up with me for unrelated reasons, and me and coworker are living together happily. Story 24. Here we go. I was a sophomore in high school, and I was dating darn near the valedictorian. She had a star GPA, was in choir and theater, cute as hell, and I could talk with her for hours. Being in the band program, a lot of the people I dated also happened to be in the band program one way or another, so when I started dating, we'll call her B, I got mixed responses. A couple kids said I was only dating her to get out of the band program, and I was using her and blah, whatever high school bullshit you can think. The others were really supportive, as previous girlfriends were a bit nutty. Anyways, there was an individual who I thought was a female best friend, someone I could come to with all my problems and just talk to when shoot gets heavy. She was 2 years older than me, a senior in the beginning, and she too was cute as hell. She and I were teachers' assistants together, where we basically sat in a back office and made copies every once in a blue moon. We were jokingly flirty, and I was trying to hook her up with an acquaintance, so I figured nothing dumb would happen. She kind of started making moves toward me, super subtle stuff, talking more than usual, sitting near me more often, just being around a lot. B wasn't suspicious. In fact, she was really supportive and happy that I had other friends and such. And in the end, that's what ended up breaking my heart the most. It was about September, and other kids that have gone through band know that's the beginning of contest season, and we sat next to each other on every ride, in the back, where you know darn well what happens back there. That's the beginning of it, and this continued for a few months. We took a trip to New York together, and that's where we had intimacy for the first time, and it just got more and more. After a while, I was living two lives, one with B and one with the affair. B ended up finding out because the affair sent her screenshots of conversations we had. It didn't occur to me until recently that there's only one way that could have happened. But needless to say, B left in a hurry. I continued to date the affair girl for a while, though, because I thought I was happy. Complications happened, and I ended up not being able to talk to her for a month, which wasn't as bad as I thought it was at the time. But during that month, I didn't see anyone else. I cheated to get here, but cheating to get out feels low, like cheating wasn't low enough. Once I could talk again, it felt different, but I ignored it as I assumed it was just nerves that it would happen again. I suspected something was happening around December of last year. She was over at a friend's house a lot, and around January she left. She swore up and down it wasn't for him, but lo and behold, they were dating less than 48 hours later. I found out later she had been with him behind my back for about 3 months before she left. Story 25. Was with my wife almost 10 years at the time, and my affair had been with her husband 10 years. The affair and I got to know each other really well over the course of the 2 years we'd been working together. Families over to each other's houses for BBQs and the kids' birthdays and the like. Her and I worked insane hours together, 10, 14 a day. But we were just friends. One day I get transferred to a unit 5 miles away, and 2 weeks later I get a sobbing phone call from the affair that her boss, my former boss, had taken her out for drinks and at some point tried to kiss her. Really shook her up, so I pulled some strings and got her transferred to me. Once again, we were working together. Fast forward 2 years. I get transferred again, and this time I take her with me. This time, we're both having problems in our respective marriages that we both know about. 60 hours a week, and you really get to know someone. Our business is such that we have 2 months where our hours slack off. We start going to the pizza place down the street for some after-work beers. By now, I've started to develop some feelings for her, but I remember what happened with our last boss, so I keep them under wraps. Weeks go by of us meeting after work for beers. One day, as we're sitting at the counter, her hand slides off her other hand and rests against mine. My heart starts pounding. I start to hear white noise, and I can feel the blood rushing to my ears. So what do? I pull away. Scared. I was certain it was an accident, but I'm nervous now, so I start bouncing my heel up and down. That's when she crosses her legs and rests her knee on my leg that's bouncing the foot. Now all bets are off, and I just gently put my hand on her neck and give a light squeeze. We look at each other and we both know. We start that awkward conversation. When did you start to feel this way? Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you say anything? That begins an almost year-long affair. The first month was hotel rooms in the back of our cars. Once work started to pick back up, we moved our intimacy to our workplace. Our spare time being filled back up with the daily grind, and it was our only time apart from the families. Our families still got together for social events and the affair, and I started to wonder where we were going with it and what we would do. We talked about leaving our families and moving in together. We talked about taking our families with us and moving in together, leaving the spouses to pick up their own pieces. Who knew? maybe they would get together. Things started to get pretty crazy in her life, and work was grinding her into the ground. So she told our bosses that she needed to spend more time with her kids. At the end of the day, she said that she needed to quit because she couldn't stand to be with me, but be able to be with me. So she quit work. About 3 months went by before my wife asked why we didn't all hang out anymore. My marriage was still basically crap, and I should have done what my guilt had been telling me, but I didn't. I looked at my daughter and just said something about her new job being really crazy with travel. I was still seeing my affair every now and again, but those feelings we felt for each other were all gone. I think my wife knew I wanted to leave. Maybe she knew how close I actually came to leaving. Either way, with the affair out of my life, I began to see that my marriage wasn't crap I was making it out to be. 15 years later, all my wives and my kids are grown up and living lives of their own, and my wife and I getting ready to celebrate year number 26. And no, I will never ever tell her. Or do it again. Story 26. I haven't cheated per se, but what I did was still messed up. I was the guy a girl cheated with. I'll preface the story by saying I was going through the beginning of a minor mental breakdown, so morals weren't exactly on my mind. It started out meeting her in my apartment building randomly. There was pretty fast chemistry, and she was super cute. Still miss her to this day. That weekend was a men's soccer game at my college, and my roommate was talking to her about her life while I was talking to another friend. He found out she had a boyfriend, and she told him it was about to end, but he had back surgery recently, and she didn't want to dump him in a hospital bed. Jump to that night, and 4 of us are in our apartment, just chilling. My roommate and another friend are talking about going out, but I was feeling this situation out. He left, and it's just me and her. We get to talking and flirting, and I bring up her boyfriend. She says, "Oh, it's a bad relationship. It'll be over in a month, a week, a day." After she said a day, I was thinking this is happening. I started playing my keyboard in order to cut the tension, which just grew as she sat on the couch watching. She clearly wasn't going to initiate and was silent even as I approached her, just staring at me. But I just went for it, and within an hour she had her legs wrapped around me in my bed. So there's that. And one time she passed out after shower intimacy while still standing and fell out. I thought I'd have to explain that to her parents and boyfriend in a hospital. That was scary. It lasted 4 months until she was so stressed from cheating that her face broke out with acne, and I cut it off because my mental health was getting better. I realized it was messed up and had to set my feelings aside and do the right thing. Still miss being with her, although I now realize we aren't all that compatible, and I also like the consistent intimacy. Story 27. To start, I was the person the girl cheated on her Beth of 4 years with. We met in college and we became friends immediately due to our love of Atla. We hung out pretty much every weekend and days off. I, having not had a girlfriend my entire life, fell for this girl almost as soon as I met her. We'd watch movies and just chill all night long. Then I'd walk her back to her dorm. She eventually started telling me about how she had cheated on her boyfriend and was trying to make things right. I thought that was fine, we can just be friends. Eventually, we just became super close friends and hung out and talked every day. One night, we were hanging out in her dorm, and I was too tired to walk home. In my tired days, I reached up from the floor and grabbed her hand, and we just held hands. From then on, there was a lot of intimacy tension between us. Eventually, after slowly building up to intimacy acts and finally having intimacy, we began to have intimacy pretty much every night. We both felt bad, but she never really told me to stop, so I just kept going. Eventually, her boyfriend found text between us and ended it since he had already given her a second chance. The next week or so, she wouldn't talk to me. It was fine. I knew what had happened. When she was done getting over her ex, she started texting me again, and when I finally got to see her again after summer break, I asked her to be my girlfriend. We will be celebrating our 3-year anniversary in August. I have loved her every single day. I know people will say I am awful and that I shouldn't have started anything with her, but we've both never been happier. Sorry if this is drawn out or vague. I just typed what I could remember without too much details. Story 28. Had a crush on a 10-10 perfect girl when we were 15. Let's call her Summer. She disliked most boys because she's constantly being hit on, but she's drawn to me. Thought it's too good to be true, despite her hinting on me for months. She finally dated someone. It broke my heart. We cut ties. Had not spoken with her for years. Several girlfriends, and years later, she texted me out of the blue. At the time, we were on relationship with our own partners. 1 year later, she moved into my college. "Hi, Batavian guy, would you give me a tour?" Fell in love again at the first meet, and fell in love more and more with every other denial. We're just friends dates. Couldn't lie to myself. I was in love with 2 women. I confessed to her, and she confessed that she already had feelings since we were 15. She broke up with her boyfriend, so she can be with me. She knew I'm in a relationship. My girlfriend knew that Summer and I had a connection since the first time I gave her the freshman tour. I had an open relationship with the two of them for some time, until my GF couldn't take it and called for us three to meet together. My GF wanted to end the relationship. Summer wanted to stay with me, and she did, until the day after that. That night, my GF called Summer and said things about me, things that prompted Summer into saying, "Sorry, Batavian Guy, I couldn't be with you. Have a good life. I know you will." I have had 12 committed relationships, with that being the last one. I have never, ever in my life had the feelings that I had for Summer. I love her truly. Nowadays, even though I date or have one-night stands, I keep thinking about Summer. I couldn't fall for another woman ever since then. My GF was popular, so she gathered all her friends to dislike me. Had tons of shoot talk, dislike, and insults. Gave me depression for a year. Summer, I couldn't lie to myself. Story 29. I had been serious with a guy for about a year and a half. Things in the relationship were terrible. He was emotionally and physically abusive. Now I'm not an idiot. I tried to break it off for almost a year. I knew the relationship was bad for me. But every time I tried to, he would manipulate me back with various threats. Well, one day I met this other brilliant guy. He immediately saw right through all the bullshit, walls, and fake smiles. I quickly fell for him and his wonderful personality. It was my fault. We just clicked with each other and became very close friends. I kissed him while still being with the abusive male body part. But despite everything my ex did to me, I still felt bad. Eventually, I managed to break up with the ex, not through lack of trying. I'm still with my SO. It has been 5 years now. I feel bad still. It wasn't at all my SO fault. He was very innocent and was only trying to save me. Story 30. Till married the guy I was cheating with. My ex-husband and I were probably never meant to be. We were young and dumb and not looking ahead. We married. 3 years and a kid later, I was miserable and he couldn't understand why. I saw the handwriting on the wall, he didn't. We were not on the same path, had very different goals. We separated and tried marriage counseling, which didn't help. I started seeing someone else during this separation period. We had already discussed divorce, but yes, we were still married. The new guy I started seeing was 5 years older than me, and we just clicked. I could finally be myself, and as we discussed our aspirations and goals, I could see that he was someone who was much more aligned with where I wanted to go and would be supportive instead of being me down, like my ex. I am happy to say that I divorced my ex and am still with the guy I met. We have been together 6 years now. We married 3 years ago this August. We are life partners, soulmates. We see eye to eye on all the big important stuff in life. My life has changed drastically for the better in the last 6 years. I have accomplished dreams that never would have happened with my ex. We just weren't right for each other. The ex and I had a very nasty divorce and a rough few years. It took a long time to tolerate each other's existence. He was very angry and hurt by the breakup and reacted poorly, causing a rift that took years to heal. I worked diligently to keep our daughter from feeling the tension or being harmed by the negativity. She is an amazing child, so I'd say I succeeded. New husband is an amazing stepdad. So it has all worked out for me, but there was a lot of pain and suffering along the way. Was it still worth it? Yes. Oh my God, yes. Story 31. Girlfriend hadn't touched me in about 10 months, and the end of the relationship was nearing its end. 10:10 at the mall I work got at me, and I was too weak to refuse. We smoked plant substance and had intimacy, and I went home feeling like a sack of shoot. I broke up with my girlfriend the next day. I told her the reason was because we're not intimacy compatible, but didn't tell her I cheated. Whole thing went down within 48 hours. Story 32. My high school sweetheart, who I was madly in love with, decided she couldn't support my decision to join the military. So we broke up, even though I had a year before I shipped to boot camp. I got involved with another girl who I was friends with through my prior relationship. Right before I left for boot camp, high school sweetheart approached me at a party about how sorry she was and supported me. One thing led to another, and we started our shenanigans there. For the added twist, I eventually left the girl I was seeing for my high school sweetheart, but sooner or later found myself back in her bedroom. Then high school sweetheart and I broke up, but we stayed friends with benefits. Then I started casually dating a girl I worked with while being friends with benefits with both my previous exes. Then within 6 months of each other, all 3 girls got married to someone else, even the girl I was casually dating. After a while, 2 of the girls approached me again, but I declined. They are married. They can go somewhere else and cheat, I'm sure, but I'm not going to cause or be in that mess. Added twist, they all 3 knew each other because of me and our relations. At first, they hated each other. Now, a few years later, I see them advertising each other's It Works products on Facebook. Story 33. I had a FWB who wanted something more, but I just didn't at the time. Then some new girl started messaging me, and I started to really dig her and left the FWB to pursue the new girl. The new girl was a little possessive and wouldn't even kiss me unless I made her my girlfriend. I eventually asked her out and we started dating. She obviously wasn't putting out yet, so I just hit up my FWB again, and we fudged probably for like a month or two. I stopped cheating once me and the new girl started to have intimacy. A couple months later, the FWB told my girlfriend because she couldn't deal with the guilt. Girlfriend extremely pissed but ultimately forgave me. Haven't cheated since, and I do realize what I did was fudge up. About a year and a half later, I think I'm realizing that I was just too afraid to love my FWB, and it's way too late to reverse everything. This whole experience really has changed how I view relationships and intimacy. Story 34. Throwaway because I have cheated on every single person I've been involved with, except for one. I compartmentalize love and intimacy, so the two have very little, if any, overlap. I also never had much desire to fix relationships, preferring them to just cease to exist. So I guess every affair started when the relationship started to get a little bit serious or have a problem, and ended when I was bored with the person I was cheating with because they got too serious. I met my now husband and completely changed. As terrible as it sounds, I actually give a shoot about this relationship. Story 35. I was in a lesbian relationship for a while. We had been dating for 3 years and had slowly drifted away from each other in that time. I started talking to this guy that I've always wanted to befriend. One thing led to another, and I ended up sleeping with him. The night I slept with him, I went home and immediately told my girlfriend and broke it off with her. Eventually, I started dating the guy I slept with, and now we're getting married in August. I'm still very good friends with my ex-girlfriend. However, it did take us a while to get back to the friendship stage. Story 36. I hope this gets buried. Dated a girl for over a year, asked another girl for private pictures, got them, broke up with girlfriend due to the chest-crushing guilt. Dated girl who sent me private pictures for like 3 weeks because I felt obligated. Broke up with her as she was a piece of shoot. Ended in tragic end attempt because the guilt was too much. Still alive. Still feel guilty in every waking moment. Still have nightmares. Still miserable about it. Worst thing I ever have done or will ever do. Story 37. Was with someone for a few years. I then had to move to another state for school and work. It already eliminated me to leave my home state and my entire family for the first time, and even worse, to be away from my then SO. The first month away was filled with tears. I felt truly alone and I couldn't bear it. When I started working, I felt much more alive, surrounded by people I enjoyed being with. I started talking to one of my coworkers. My first real conversation with her was me opening up and telling her what's been going on. Something about her allowed me to do so. We eventually started hanging out every day, and it was obvious that we had a thing for each other, but I kept denying it, thinking I was happy being with the one I was with. Our daily hangouts were so simple, like a night talking at Starbucks, but it meant so much to me. I soon realized that I haven't been happy with my current relationship for a good year now. I had been keeping the relationship with my then SO because it was a comfortable choice, but that was about it. I didn't love her anymore. It was probably part of the reason I wasn't doing so well in the first month, because the person I kept looking back to for happiness was someone I couldn't care about the same way anymore. It was even more obvious to me when I noticed I haven't talked to my SO for a few weeks and didn't care. After a night at the beach, my coworker and I kissed. After that, she has been very important in my life, showing me how a true relationship works between two people and teaching me how to show my feelings towards someone I care about. This was an aspect I never got in my previous relationship, and I didn't know how important it was. I broke up with my ex as soon I made a visit home soon after. Story 38. My girlfriend cheated, not with me, out of an abusive relationship. She was dating this guy who intimacy mentally and physically abused her. I know what most people think when they read this. Why don't